I'm back with Chapter 7, Tracking a Shark. The next morning, they began a routine that would continue for the rest of the summer. Eddie, Joe, and then Sarah woke up early. Sarah drank a big cup of dark, homemade hot chocolate. Joe and Eddie drank their Cuban coffee. The scent of the coffee beans became pleasing to Sarah. It meant the start of a great day. Sarah made a list of the things she needed to do every morning to help her grandfather prepare for a day on the water. Clean anchor lines and check for weak spots. Make sure there are 3 anchors on board. Check fuel tank levels. Check life preservers. Fill water bottles. Get yummy picnic lunch from Grandma. She whistled through her duties and grabbed her backpack, now filled with snorkeling gear, sunscreen, sunglasses, a hat, a big shirt, a pencil, and notebook, a bottle of water, and one of Granddad's shark papers. When her grandfather had finished tinkering with the engine, he and Sarah would set off to find sharks. One day, Sarah's grandfather arranged for them to track a large female lemon shark. "Put on this headset, Sarah," he said as he handed her a set of large padded earphones, "and hold this tube." He handed Sarah a white plastic tube shaped like a U, an upside-down L. It's attached to an underwater microphone called a hydrophone. This box over here is called a receiver. It picks up the sound from the shark's tag through the hydrophone and then sends it to your earphones. Sarah was amazed at all of the equipment they needed to find a single shark. All you do is move the tube slowly back and forth from one side to another until you hear a ping. The direction of the tube is facing when the ping is loudest, in the direction we need to go to find the shark. Simple, Sarah squinted up at her grandfather. Without a comment, she turned and swept the hydrophone in a big arc. Sarah listened closely. She didn't hear anything that sounded like a ping. Her eyebrows rose questionably as she turned to her grandfather. "Don't worry, sometimes it takes a long time before you hear anything," he assured her. They launched the boat and made their way slowly out of the channel. Sarah held onto the seat next to her grandfather as they threaded their way among the tree islands and creeks on the open sea. The boat skimmed over the open water. Sarah watched carefully and picked up the shadows of the stingrays and sea turtles as they sped by. "There's a big stingray," shouted Sarah over the roar of the engines. "Yes," Sarah's grandfather shouted back. "There seem to be more of them now. It may be because sharks are becoming so rare." Sharks fed on stingrays. Less sharks meant more stingrays. So it's not necessarily a good sign, shark-wise. Sarah nodded and continued to watch the water. After a while, Granddad stopped the boat and Sarah adjusted her earphones. She picked up the tracking tube and dropped the hydrophone in the water. She began to move the instrument slowly back and forth against the horizon. At first, the tracking was exciting, and the possibility of finding a shark at any minute kept Sarah on edge. Then, as the minutes stretched into hours, it became annoying, then disappointing, then downright boring. The sun was fierce. It seemed even hotter because they weren't going as fast as usual. Sarah swept the pipe back and forth, back and forth. Her lips and arms began to burn despite the heavy layer of sunscreen she wore. "Granddad," she called, "how long do you think this will take?" "Depends," he said. "Oh, great," thought Sarah, and readjusted her headphones. 3 hours later, they were still looking for their shark, and they had moved up and down the bay. Sarah was discouraged, hot and tired. "This is what it's like," said Granddad, and patted her head. All the wonderful things we've learned about sharks are backed up by many, many long, difficult hours of research. Sooner or later, we'll find something. We'll head out into deeper water. Often sharks go offshore during the day, then come back in the evening. They ate lunch, read from a shark paper, and watched for turtles. Sarah took turns steering the boat when she wasn't listening for pings. They traded back and forth. It was Sarah's turn to listen again. She scanned with the tube. Nothing. Then, just as she was about to give up and beg to be taken home, she heard something. "Granddad," she shouted. "I hear a ping. I think. Wait. No. Yes, yes, yes." Sarah turned the pipe and pointed in the direction of the sound was louder. Granddad steered the boat in that direction. She lost the sound, and then she found it again. This time it was headed toward shore. They followed. The heat of the sun and the weight were forgotten. Sarah had found a shark that they could never have found without the tiny transmitter attached to its dorsal fin. Now they could track its movements and find out what it was doing on a sunny day in July. The pings became louder as they moved toward the shallow, sandy area. "Sarah, look there. Sarah, look there," Granddad called. Ahead of them was a dark, cigar-shaped shadow with 2 pectoral fins on each side and 2 dorsal fins, almost the same size as its back. Sarah squealed. It looked just like her shark, only bigger. "Judging from her size," said Granddad, "she could be the mother of your little shark. She's old enough, and she's in the right area. She'll stay here, along the coast, for another month or so." Sarah looked out at the gripping shadow ahead of them. She thought about her small shark darting in and out of the mangroves. "Granddad, how long will it take my shark to get as big as she is?" she asked. "At least 12 years, probably more," he said. "Sharks grow very slowly. That's one of the reasons why we need to protect them. It will take a long time to replace the sharks that have disappeared." Female lemon sharks had no way of knowing she was electronically linked to the humans in the boat. She came to a halt. The boat stopped too. She began moving again. The boat followed. They halted and moved and spent the rest of the afternoon crossing the bay at the shark's pace. Finally, thunder heads began to gather, and Granddad turned toward home. That night, they read an article written by a scientist who had tracked young lemon sharks using the same method as Sarah and her grandfather. He determined that the younger sharks, like Sarah's pup, stayed close to the mangroves for several years, probably to avoid being eaten by any larger fish or other sharks. "Eaten by sharks?" exclaimed Sarah. "That's terrible. Why would they eat each other?" "We don't know the real reason," answered Granddad. "Perhaps there's some genetic benefit, or perhaps they just happen to be in the right size, or we don't know." You have to stop judging an animal from our point of view. Animals aren't good or evil, they just do certain things. As scientists, we observe what they do and try to understand them. Understanding them is much harder to do than it sounds. It would be easy to say the lemon shark we saw today was out on the reef having a nice time. But was she? We only know that she was moving from place to place. She wasn't in a hurry. She didn't eat. She moved from deep water to shallow water as the day progressed. But we don't know the true shark reason she did all these things. "When will we know?" Sarah asked. "When you grow up," Granddad said, seriously. And computers and transmitters track and transmit information about many sharks over their entire lifetimes. Even then, we still may not know everything or really be able to understand what it's like to think with their brains. Good. I wouldn't want us to know all there is and all their secrets. "How much danger are sharks in now?" Sarah asked. "Grave danger. Many kinds of sharks are endangered and could be extinct very quickly. Many shark populations have dropped since the 70s. We kill at least 30 million sharks every year, and some people think it's as many as 100 million. Lemon sharks must be 12 or 13 years old before they can have pups, and other species of sharks must be even older. Plus, sharks have only a few babies at a time compared with other fish, which spew out millions and millions of eggs each year. We need to act quickly if we want to save sharks. Sarah nodded. The math was simple.